Good afternoon, and thank you all so much for being here. It is my honor and pleasure to be presenting a new theme, the music time machine. Today we will go on a journey from the 1600s to the 1900s, and we'll explore music from each period. Today we'll begin the journey in the Baroque era, around 1600 to 1750. Around this time, they didn't have the modern piano yet, and they had the harpsichord and clavichord. The harpsichord and clavichord were designed to pluck the strings instead of strike them, and this naturally gave the harpsichord and clavichord a softer, more delicate sound, almost like a big guitar. And from this time period, there was a very famous composer, Johann Sebastian Bach, who I'll be performing. Bach had over 20 children, and almost all of his children played or composed music professionally. So there are like many clones of Bach, and there's many of Bach's pieces, not just from Johann Sebastian Bach, but many of his children. Johann Sebastian Bach also lived a very long life, working for the church and receiving a steady income, which many composers later down didn't have. Today I've selected two of Bach's sinfonias, number 11 and 15. Sinfonias are pieces with three voices. They're written for three hands, but the pianist only has two, and that's what makes Bach's music so difficult. The first sinfonia, number 11, is very slow, it's very heavenly, and it's like the angels descending from heaven. And the second piece, Sinfonia number 15, is the complete opposite, and that's why I chose this piece. This piece, it's fast, it's exhilarating, it's very mechanical, and it's almost like Bach drank too much coffee when writing this piece. Hope you guys enjoyed very much. Thank you. Now we arrive at our second stop in the classical era. Around this time is when the Enlightenment age began, which meant ideas and music started to spread. And with the spread of music, composers also began to become really famous. Some famous composers include Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven. And all of these composers composed in the sonata form. The sonata is like a template. It's like a form of music with strictly set rules that the composers must follow. Today I've chosen Beethoven's Sonata number 11, opus 22. This piece is written just before Beethoven's famous, some would say crazy middle era. So it's still very tame, but some of his personality started to seep into this piece. For example, his unpredictability. And when listening to this piece, I encourage you try to guess what's coming next, because it's like one of Beethoven's distinct qualities in his music. Hope you guys enjoy very much. Thank you. Now we arrive at our third stop in the Romantic era. This is one of my favorite musical eras because music is now a lot more emotional, it's a lot more subjective. And there are many, many famous composers from this era as well. For example, there's Tchaikovsky, there's Brahms, there's Mendelssohn, there's Liszt, and there's Chopin. Today we'll focus on Chopin. Chopin was a Polish man who lived most of his life in Paris. He was really homesick, and he felt a sense of guilt when Poland went to war because he wasn't there for his country. So he wrote his 24 etudes. These etudes are some of the most difficult in piano repertoire today, and compared to Czerny's etudes, which many of us have played, it's a lot more emotional. And compared to, for example, Liszt's or Rachmaninoff's etudes, it's more difficult in a sense of like endurance because it sticks to one technique throughout the entire piece and it doesn't switch. So it's very mentally and physically tiring. I've picked Chopin's etude number 11, opus 25, nicknamed Winter Wind. Hope you guys enjoy. Thank you very much. now we step into our fourth stop. This is the late Romantic period, and it's mostly famous for Rachmaninoff. Today I'll perform one of Rachmaninoff's cousin's pieces, Scriabin. Scriabin was a very odd person. He believed in mysticism and that he was a prophet of sound. He also famously associated colors with sound or keys. I think I have a graph here. Yeah. So here, each note has a different color assigned to it. As you can see, for example, C is red and G is orange. And that's what makes Scriabin so special. Scriabin was very experimental with his music, compared to Rachmaninoff, who took a more traditional route to composing. Rachmaninoff was a lot more famous because his music made more sense. Most of Scriabin's music is really weird and it's unlistenable. It sounds like a jumble of notes. But today I've picked one of his more beautiful pieces that makes sense. This piece is Sonata number 2, and it's called Sonata Fantasy because it's like a fantasy. And I hope you guys enjoy this piece as much as I do. Thank you very much. how we arrive at our fifth and final stop in the 19th century. Around this time, there were multiple different music styles and different, I'd say, musical eras, because there's multiple different artistic movements going on at this time. For example, there's Impressionism, Realism, Naturalism, and there's many, many more. Today we'll focus on Impressionism. Impressionism comes from painting, and I have a prepared painting for you guys. This is by Claude Monet, who is the most famous Impressionist painter. If you look closely, you'll see that each stroke, it's not very clear. It's like blurry, and there's no like clear outlines. It creates a sort of atmosphere through, and like it sort of mixes everything together. And that's what Ravel did with his music as well. In fact, Ravel was good friends with Claude Monet, and he took this sort of atmospheric inspiration and put it into his own compositions. Ravel, as a person, he was very precise. He liked to listen to a clock in his ear. He was also very competitive. When Balakirev had wrote Islamé, it was regarded as the most difficult piece in piano repertoire at the time. And he felt challenged, and he wanted to one-up Balakirev. So he wrote Scarbo, which is now one of the most difficult pieces in piano repertoire, a lot more difficult than Islamé. Today I will play Ravel's Jeu d'eau, which translates to water games. This piece, has a lot of different elements of water. Ravel uses many different techniques to create multiple different types of water. And when listening to this piece, I encourage you guys, close your eyes and try to imagine water flowing through this room. Thank you guys very much. Please enjoy Ravel.